I've been a farmer all my life, mainly on land, but made the transition to salmon farming about 8 years ago.
What's happening, man?
Evan Carney is a young salmon grower from Grand Manan Island in the Bay of Fundy. Canada's Atlantic coast is an ideal environment to farm seafood, especially our native Atlantic salmon. Today, fully 50% of the world's seafood comes from aquaculture, and this will increase as the world's population grows. Farmed Atlantic salmon look and are almost genetically identical to their wild cousins. In fact, the salmon grown in Atlantic Canada originate from St. John River stock. The salmon eggs are grown in a land-based freshwater hatchery for about 18 months. Once these young salmon have become smolt, they are ready to be moved to large net pans on ocean farms that are suited to withstand the dynamic tides and weather of the Bay of Fundy. The result is a consistent, high-quality, nutritious food.
We do very closely mimic the fish's life as it occurs in the wild. The fish are started in fresh water and then they are transferred to salt water, which is exactly how it occurs in nature. Cage densities are actually quite low. We stock our fish at about 100 grams, where they're given lots of room for regular swimming and schooling behavior.
The supply of the fish meal and the fish oil that we use in our salmon feeds is from industries that are regulated by the International Fish Meal and Fish Oil Organization. We want to make certain that we're using ingredients that come from sustainable industry.
Like all farm animals, salmon need healthy living conditions. Fish farms follow the highest fish management standards and provide their fish with the best possible living conditions. Underwater camera systems are used to allow farmers to monitor fish health and reduce feed waste. And third-party monitors ensure that salmon farms operate within the stringent environmental regulations in codes and practices.
What we do is we actually send teams of biologists and divers out on the water working with the salmon farms. And there's a regulatory requirement in the Atlantic region, across Canada for that matter, that establish some environmental thresholds for performance of the salmon farms and trout farms. I believe at last count there was something in the order of 75 or 80 federal and provincial acts and regulations that govern how this industry operates. So some of the work that we do is actually going out and taking samples underneath the cages and around the perimeter of the cages to ensure that they don't exceed environmental thresholds.
My grandfather and father come from the traditional fisheries, and myself and two brothers grew up in that environment. And it's well documented and very clear that the monitoring systems that we have in place are the most stringent in the world.
Everybody on these working waterfronts need to be good stewards to our environment, and it's the only way to secure the future of these industries for generations to come.
Along with these strict regulations, farmers are also experimenting with other farm practices. Integrated multi-trophic aquaculture is just one example. This system involves using local species of mussels and kelp to recreate the food chain and mimic natural ecosystems near the salmon cages. This provides environmental remediation and produces additional crops for commercial use. The result is a diverse, great-tasting fish that is not only safe for the environment, but also creates many good jobs in communities that traditionally relied on fishing.
My father was a fisherman, and I started when I was 17, until the 1980s when the traditional fishery, ground fishery, collapsed. A lot of the people had to move away from Shelburne, and aquaculture is looking to expand in Shelburne here in the near future. We're getting applications from people that, anywhere from Ontario to British Columbia, that people want to come back here to live, so it's really, really great.
When you put 350 direct jobs possible in the spin-off jobs, you're looking around between 700 and 800 jobs. When you factor that number of jobs into a small rural area, it's huge.
This industry is very important because it's a stable, full-time industry. Most all of the people working in this industry is full-time work, which is not the case in a lot of other ag or traditional fishery industries, which are very seasonal. So it's is a very important base of employment for the community.
Salmon farming is not only producing jobs, but salmon is one of the world's best sources of heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. What also makes farm salmon such a healthy choice is what does and doesn't go into them. It takes a full 3 years to raise a farmed salmon to market size. They are not genetically modified in any way. No growth hormones or artificial dyes are used in this process, and very few ever receive an antibiotic.
Salmon are very efficient in converting their feed to flesh. The biological feed conversion is between 1.1 and 1.2 kilos of feed required for 1 kilo of flesh gain. Compared to other livestock animals such as cattle, which would be 8 kilos of feed for 1 kilo of flesh gain, we are able to produce healthy salmon that not only taste great, but are also healthy for the consumer.
When it comes to seafood, freshness is everything. Maritime salmon farmers have the advantage of being able to deliver from ocean to plate within hours. This assures you of the best fish possible. And DNA traceability means that the salmon in your grocery store can be traced all the way back to the eggs in the hatchery. Aquaculture is continually evolving, and modern salmon farming benefits from the world's best science and technology, while at the same time draws from centuries of traditional fishing wisdom.
The fisheries and the aquaculture industry have been able to grow alongside each other over quite a period of time, and both are strong staples of these small communities in Atlantic Canada.
The interest, I think, of the people in this industry comes from the traditional fishery and enjoying working in the ocean or on the water.
Most of the people that we have with us now are used to working on the water. And they like working on the water. To get a job now to work with us and go home every night means quite a bit too.
It's nice to be a provider, and I guess that's where that link is between fatherhood and the actual activity of farming. With salmon farming, we're providing a nutritious and sustainable product for generations to have in the future.
The world's population has hit 7 billion, and the number of hungry people will continue to grow. So will the need for healthy protein. Farming the ocean has been done around the world for centuries, but it is now vital for the future of our planet. Salmon farming is a natural fit for Atlantic Canada. Our industry brings prosperity to coastal communities, and our farmers will continue to grow world-class salmon for generations to come.